I'm Billy Harvey.
Hey there, this is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
Hey guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
What's up, everybody? Jacob from the Big News.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Check me out at Almost Famous Magazine.
Buzzing from our clips to be dropping on Almost Famous Magazine.
Check out Almost Famous Magazine.
You can find more clips from my interview with Almost Famous Magazine.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Okay, so you learn a lot, and I follow up a lot of times with this. I love giving people a bit of what we learn, and I believe that in life, when you learn something, the greatest gifts you can give someone, and I hope some aspiring young musicians are watching this. What's one of those things that you learned that you could deposit with someone else as a bit of a lesson, kind of like you did with that Robbie story?
I think for me, it was the fact that these people are human, man. They're real, right? Now, I'm sure nobody would hate me for telling this story, but I remember being I was in the south of France, I believe, and we were on tour with Joe. And one night I went into town to meet a friend of mine. And as I was walking down this street, I looked in this bar and Joe was in the bar on his own in a corner. I was like, what's he doing there? I went in, I went, yo, what are you doing? And he had his head down and he had a drink and he was like, man, and I think he was having a bit of a bad time with his wife or something like that. But he was just having one of those days. And we started chatting and he put his head on my shoulder. Like he was really vulnerable. He was really kind of a bit lost. And I looked around and no one was noticing who we were. And I just thought, God, if anybody could see me now, like me, just this guy, this nobody in the world of anything is sitting and Joe Strummer, this legend, is kind of crying on my shoulder. Right. And I just, everything, all the perception of this, who he was, he was just a real guy. And we had this moment and it was wonderful, really. And we were friends and we sat and we chatted about it and we kind of talked through it. It was, but it was, that's one for a good dinner party story. I remember this one time with Joe Strummer on my shoulder.
Did you save the shirt? With
I saved the shirt. Yeah, I'm going to sell it. I'm just letting it fester for another couple of years. Yeah.
It's in a frame on the back of the wall.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that. You talk about, we were talking about you got jobs and you built some friendships.
Mm-hmm.
You had another job, you learned something, you had a friendship with Robbie.
Mm.
The next thing I want to talk about is really what I perceive as your family, the Alarm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How that to me, there's so many bands out there and so many musicians. There's strife. There's all this other stuff going on. Sometimes they stay together. Sometimes they don't. They work well together. Sometimes they don't. But the Alarm to me is a family band. And I think, Mike and Jules are certainly with their personalities and the way that they care about people they get all the credit. But how did that come about? And how does it feel to be in in a band right now where you've been with them for a fair amount of time and it became that family? Because you guys are tight.
We're really tight. I can't quite remember how I first got the gig. Right? Now it's a bit blurred. Now it was to do with Dave Sharp, the original guitarist. And after I'd done Strummer, I went to a Joe Strummer festival, right? Something like that. And I think I was the guest of Honor, blah, to get up and play a few drums and all that. And then someone said, oh yeah, you're on after Dave Sharp. And I went, no, I was a fan of the Alarm back in the 80s, man. No, Declaration, I bought it. I went and saw them play and yada, yada, yada. So I hadn't really kept it up. But I said, Dave Sharp, what, the Alarm Dave Sharp? And they were like, yeah, that's him over there. So I was like, wow, man. And I went and introduced myself. And he was a really nice guy. Like, really, hey, Dave, it's lovely to meet you kind of thing. I said, if you ever need a drummer, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, we exchanged numbers. And ironically, he did. He called me. He said, look, maybe come and rehearse and just hang out. And so I went to see him. took a mate of mine, the bass player, and we played with him and stuff. And he was like, look, basically what I'm doing like an alternative alarm. I'm doing all the songs that Mike doesn't do. I remember getting home and thinking, wow, I'd love to do the songs that Mike was doing. And it was back in the days of MySpace. You remember MySpace? Before, right. So somehow I could get to Mike Peters. I don't know how. Mike obviously had. I typed in Mike Peters and there he was. Right? So I messaged him. And I remember cheekily putting, hey Mike, been a fan of yours. If you ever need Joe Strummer's drummer sitting behind you, give me a call. Right? Didn't think anything of it. And he messaged back. And he's like, hey man, yeah, you in the Mescaleros, He said, I might have something for you. We're playing in America, but we're coming back to the show. Why don't you come to the show? So anyway, was that it? No, it's a better story than that. He said, hey, why don't we just, why don't we hook up and we'll play together? Like an audition, but not, So he told me where in London. So I go to this room and I'm just sitting in this room. And I'm like, Mike Peters, man, never met the guy or anything. Anyway, opens the door and there he is, all hair, and there he was. And we had this massive hug and we started chatting, and there was a drum kit and there was a guitar, and he just went, after about 10 minutes, he went, do you want to play something? I said, yeah. What do you want to do? And he just, even hey. And I think he started playing Marching On or something, and I just started playing with him, and he nodded and he just went, amazing. Should we go to the pub? Yeah, let's go to the pub. And that was it. My audition for the alarm was like one song, not even the full song. And then I think he'd called James Stevenson, and he came and we just hung out, and the other guy was doing it. The other drummer was doing it. And so I think kind of I got the job as the depth drummer, right? If he needed me, And then, the situation, we got asked to do a Joe Strummer tribute act, right? Called Los Mondo Bongo. And we went out and we did it. I think we did something in Italy, and we used this guy who was a Joe Strummer impersonator, right? Thinking it's going to be great, right? But I was like, look, I can pull in some really cool cats here, like I've been playing in Spear of Destiny, and Derek Forbes from Simple Minds is doing it. Steve Harris from Gary Newman's doing it. Pablo Cook, who was in the Mescaleros, he wants to do it. Man, we got a serious band here. So we tried it with this singer. And he was all right in rehearsals, and then we got to this show, and he was such a diva. He was like, I want this, and there's all these amazing proper musicians like Derek Forbes and stuff. Just going, who is this egomaniac? So anyway, we got back, and then someone said about, look, someone wants to put a tour on, but can anybody think of a singer? And I was like, I'll tell you, it'd be brilliant, Mike Peters. And they were like, well, ask him. So I messaged him and just went, do you fancy doing this? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So he came out on tour. And then sneakily in the back of my mind, I have to say, I was just thinking, this is like a 2-week audition for the alarm, sitting behind him every night. So I did. And then as the sliding doors moment, I think right at the end of the tour, something had moved in. He had an alarm tour lined up with Steve Grantley, still his drummer, and Steve Grantley was on tour with Stiff Little Fingers, and there was a gap that Steve couldn't do. So Danny Farrant from the Buzzcocks was doing it. It was all in stone. And Danny Farrant, while Mike was sitting next to me on the tour bus, rang him and said, I can't do these dates because I think my wife's having a baby or whatever. So Mike said to me, oh man, what am I going to do? Can you do it? I said, no, I'm out. I'm playing with Archive. He's like, all right, I'll see if Steve can do it. And he rings Steve Grantley, and Grantley said, no, I can't. I just can't do it. So Mike's like, you could hear when he was talking to Steve, he was like, look, Steve, I need you to do this. And Steve just said no. Maybe that was their time together had come to an end a little bit. So he puts down the phone and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, how many gigs is it? He said, it's like a 3-week tour. And I said, well, Mike, it's only the first 3 gigs I can't do. Why don't I get someone else? And then I'll do the rest of the tour. He went, all right. And that was it. There you go. So, and I've been with them for 15 years. So that's how easy it is, folks. You just got to follow your instincts and message people on MySpace.
Well, dust off your MySpace account, everyone, because people are now, when they get a message there, they're pretty like, wow, it hasn't happened in ages.
Yeah.
But you go into that sliding doors things analogy, and I would say, I'm not sure the door is slid. I think you opened it. And taking that initiative, I think, is a great lesson, especially for younger musicians, right?
Yeah.
I have this saying, you don't GET if you don't ASK.
Absolutely. Brilliant. That's great. I like that.
Yeah. And you put yourself out there. You were willing to accept the fact that 99% chance you could get rejected. But there's that 1% chance you got the response. I think that's great. It's a great way to live life, you know.
Well, the question being now in my slightly later years, I'm getting parents asking me now, saying, you know, my son, he's 16 years old, he's a great drummer. What advice can you give him? And I say, get in a covers band. Get in a covers band. Get out and play shows every weekend. Become the drummer for that 4 minutes. So if you're doing a Who song, play it like Keith would have played it. If you're doing a Zeppelin song, play it like Bonham would have played it. And when you walk out after that 2-hour gig, you got 25, 30 different drumming styles in your arsenal, right? And you've already learned loads. I said, and then people will see you. And if people are looking for a drummer, you've been seen. If you sit in your bedroom and you never go anywhere, no one's going to see you. And I think that's everything I've ever got is because someone's seen me play or heard of me, someone seeing me play. That's it. It is, the music industry is based on word of mouth, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, you can be the greatest virtuoso in the world, but if you're sitting in the basement playing and you're just throwing, tracks on YouTube, who's going to see if somebody stumbles by? You brought up the thing about the, getting a cover or tribute band and play and learn all these styles. Going back to the start of our story, you had a knack and your dad sent you for lessons. They were out of your wheelhouse, the jazz, some jazz and swing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to that two drumming scenario, which saying that you're using two sets of drums for pop songs, you were either doing a tribute for Adam Ant or you were in a prog rock group at that point.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of bands that, maybe the Eagles did it a few times. I don't know. But of all of the different styles that you've learned over time, right? If you decide to sit down, you just had a day and you want to play something for you, what style of playing is kind of your comfort, your comfort food? What do you really love just jamming out to that fulfills you, as opposed to you doing a gig that is a style that you have to conform to?
Now, grooving, absolute. I've gone back and drummers who are influencing me now, I'll go back to the old school, Steve Jordan, Jim Keltner, Hal Blaine, all these guys, James Gadsden, who just used to sit on this groove. I watched a documentary on James Brown the other night, right? And the drumming was just nothing flash. They just sat, he had two drummers, right? They just sat in that pocket. And now, being a drummer who owns a studio, right? So I produce a lot. Now, it's been interesting the last kind of few years getting drummers come to me, because I can hear now that most drummers overplay. Most drummers are putting things in that don't need to be in songs. So my job as a producer is to find the nicest way possible to say, don't do that. Because in my drumming, all the recordings, if I listen to stuff I did 30 years ago to the stuff I've done in the last 5 years, it's still the same player, but I play a lot less, right? In the early days, you do this thing where you want to stamp your authority on something. So you want to put that drum fill in that everybody goes, hey, man, that must be Smiley. You know what I mean? I heard Josh Freese talking about this the other day, the Foo Fighters drummer, and he was saying the same thing. He got hired for years because we wanted it to sound like Josh, and he said, I don't know what that sounds like. I was just going in and playing for the song. And that's what it's all about. So if I do I'll tell you a good example. Sound checks. Like sound checks for a band. You will find out everything you need to know about that drummer in 5 minutes when that sound man says, give me a kick, bum, 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 give me a snare, yada, yada, yada. Okay, just play the kit. Right? And if a drummer goes, right, it's like, see you later. Right? If you sit down and go, right? I've seen people in a room while you're sound checking, all nodding. Yeah, man, this is cool. And you're just laying down a groove, right? You're just laying nothing clever, and you're just hitting the odd tom. So the sound man's going, yeah, that's great. I've got that sound. You're putting a bit of space between everything. And you can make people move just by laying down this. And I do it all the time. I love it. If you can make people nod their head, right, trust me, that's a really cool thing. Or their foot tapping. That's my thing now. I think I'm becoming a hippie. Like more and more in my later years. I think, anything anything too frenetic. Like, will you play on this track? Like, oh, really? Oh.
Well, it's interesting because I agree with you. I mean, I think when you first learn something, you want to show everybody you know how to do it.
Yeah.
And there's two avenues you can go down. You can keep just throwing everything at the kitchen sink and creating this sonic wall of clang, or you can realize that sometimes silence is golden.
Absolutely,
less is more.
1,000,000%.
And
less is more. Less is more. That's it. And I've said this to people in the studio, right? I've said it to guitarists. In fact, I've said it to more guitarists than anybody. When we get to the point in that song where it's solo time, and I go, "Is there a solo on this?" And the guy go, "Yeah." I go, "Brilliant. Okay, ready? I'm going to play the track. Just play your solo." And he goes, and my latest trick. I love this trick. And I sit there, and the band is sitting behind him, and this guy's going, and then I sit there, and he finishes, and I go, "Wow, that's amazing. Have you got that out of your system now? Because we are not having that on this record." And he goes, "Well," I go, "I'm absolutely stoked that you can do that. And let me just say, congratulations. You're amazing. Now, I want one note." And they go, "What?" I want one note that you're gently bending like Keith Richards. So stand there like Keith Richards and give me a bit of Keith swagger, right? Now, initially, they don't like that because they've perfected this part, I had a kid in recently with his dad, right? And this kid was incredible, right? He could play anything, right? Anyway, when it got to solo time, and his dad is like, "I think you missed out the 17th note on the triplet, blah, blah, blah." And this kid's like, "Oh, sorry, Dad. And I said to his dad, "Do me a favor. Could you just shoot down the shop to get some milk?" And he's like, "Well, I want to hear the solo first." No. I said, "Don't worry. I've got him. You shoot down the shop." Anyway, I kick him out of the studio, basically. I just look at this kid. I was like, "You don't want to do this, do you?" And he was like, "No." I went, "What would you do?" And he went, "Down, down, down, down." And I went, "Man, that is just brilliant. That's what you should do." And he went, "I've been telling him that's what." And I went, "Right, trust me, that's." So, and when his dad got a bit of a shock when he got back, when he heard the solo. And solo was just super sexy, like the sort of thing Prince would do, Prince could do that better than anybody. But you know what Prince would do? He'd hold one note. And you kind of go, "That's why you're Prince, man,"
I've never understood, and look, I'm a hack guitarist. I know just enough to strum some chords, sing a little bit. The more booze it sounds, the better. But I've never understood the idea of just thrashing for the sake of thrashing and firing off more 16th and 32nd notes than anybody to show them how fast your fingers can move now, but won't in 25 years with arthritis, and you won't be able to reproduce it. Whereas you can listen to a David Gilmour solo and cry because you can hear the strings crying and you can feel him in that note.
I know, a million percent. And I found over the years of producing these guitarists, they kind of want to do that, but they feel the need to have to show you how technically brilliant they are. So let them get it out of their system and then go, that's great, but don't do it. No, that's not happening.
Yeah. You know, I've been listening. I don't know if you know Ali Ferguson. He puts out these really great. The audio is very ethereal from the standpoint. He uses a lot of earth elements. So you've got in his recordings water and wind, and he uses that to space with the notes, and it's just brilliant. And it's almost like and I've never talked to him, but it's my impression that he uses the natural sound to help him restrain from overplaying.
You know,
because there's a beauty in the silence.
Well, that to me, the missing element in everything, the track I try to find in a song is the space track, the track that puts breathing space in. So if someone's got a 32 bar solo, break it up, right? So you say, well, do it in 4 goes, do it in 4 8-bar goes, and put a gap. So if you're going to go down, 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 2, 3, 4, da 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 da, and you'd be amazed how that pricks your ear. If it's just this wall of, no one really cares, and everybody gets pretty bored. But if you listen to something so majestically like suiting the song, you listen to something Lindsey Buckingham does for Fleetwood Mac, and the number of times I've sat and listened to Rumours and gone, is this just me? Is it me, or is this just bass and drums and just piano and one guitar? And it's like, why does it sound so full and rich? And because he's playing one note. It's like, Go Your Own Way, that solo is just one of the greatest solos of all time. It's just him playing one note. It's just like, and then he moves slowly up playing one note, and it's just playing for the song. And that's, if you can get that out of somebody, you're succeeding as a producer, I think.